Hello, my name is Cameron, also known as The Scrub. I'm the audio designer for Scriptum here at Periscope Games, and in this video I'll be walking you through our new game mode, Offensive. I'll also be explaining a few key mechanics and rules within the game. Now please be aware this is just a draft representation of the game mode and it is still being developed, but here are the basics. So here is the loading screen, titled Operation Market Garden with the map Healsome. There is also some additional information shown here, such as the time and date that the operation occurred during the war. So the new game mode here is called Offensive, which has two versions, Authentic and Armory, with Authentic being true to the events of the battle, with the correct amount of vehicles and armor being available to both sides, whereas Armory favors more sort of traditional gameplay with plenty of gear, tanks and transport vehicles available. So the two teams available to fight for during this game mode are the British 1st Airborne Division and the SS Panzer Division, and below here is a small historical description of the events that unfolded that day. The British here have some vehicles available, such as the two T-17s, which is not an authentic, it's just an example, two Bren carriers, two Daimler armoured cars, etc. And shown opposite is the gear available to the German faction. The offensive game mode is categorically attack and defend. The battle at Healsome was the first day of the operation, and seen here are the British paradrop forces to the north with their LZ spawn points, and the SS Panzer Division stationed down here to the southwest, close to Rancune. The main base is your first spawn point. Here you can find transport, logistic and armoured vehicles, and it's where the infantry can spawn at the start of each round. To win as the attackers on offensive, the team must capture all objectives scattered over the map and overcome the enemy defence. The defenders, you must deplete the enemy's reinforcements to win. Here you can see objectives A1 and B1 in the same colour. This means, as the British, you must capture both objectives to advance to the next stage of the attack and move on to A2 and B2. At the start of each round, the attacking team will want to create a forward operating base or a FOB. This requires a construction truck which can be obtained from main base. And from there, the squad leaders can build a FOB from their construction menu, allowing teammates to spawn. After this, the truck is no longer needed and can be hidden away somewhere for future use. When the FOB is placed, it'll show up as a radio tent. You will need 120 seconds before it's usable, however this process can be sped up by getting teammates to shovel the tent. Each FOB, when fully constructed, can build 2 in-place machine guns, 2 heavy mortars, sandbags, bunkers and headshocks, with no construction points required. Squad leaders can also construct a vehicle tent, which can spawn light vehicles such as jeeps and transport trucks. The FOB, apart from main base, is the only place you can acquire light recon and transport vehicles. FOBs are a vital asset in your team's attack and you must defend these locations whatever the cost may be. FOBs can be destroyed using sapper charges such as satchels or TNT. Without completely destroying the tent itself, however, the enemy can deactivate the radio, denying the spawn point at that location, though your team can reactivate it when the enemy is pushed back and cleared from the immediate area. Although it's not possible to deploy a FOB too close to an objective, it can be built anywhere else on the map, as long as it's not within 500 meters of another FOB. Therefore, you could have one FOB per objective, as seen here with one just north of objective A1 and one over here to the northeast of objective B1. But remember, you do need a construction truck to build each of these FOBs. Using these trucks depletes supplies, which we'll get back to in just a second. Also, as an infantry unit spawning on a FOB, you will be able to resupply your ammunition and switch your kit. I am the squad leader, and I'm driving this construction truck with my full squad in the vehicle with me. I want to set up a firing position here at the crossroads, so I can take the truck to the desired position, disembark and construct any kind of emplacement I want, such as MGs, mortars, sandbags, etc. Each of these built assets will require construction points. The amount of construction points available to a truck is represented visually by the amount of crates and gear in the back. The more crates, the more supplies you have. Once the construction truck is out of these supplies, it will need to be resupplied at main base, which is the only place you can do this. To build any type of emplacement, you do not need to be within proximity of a FOB, as the supplies and construction points offered by the trucks can be used anywhere on the map. There is another way to get yourself back into the action aside from spawning at main base or at a FOB, and this is the MSP, or Mobile Spawn Point. The MSP is a transport truck found at main base, which can be moved to a position on the map and, as long as it's stationary, dead teammates or new arrivals to the match can spawn directly onto it. Spawning is not available if the truck is moving, however, and if the MSP is destroyed, it will respawn at main after 5 minutes. You can have two MSPs running at one time, so they can be focused on different objectives or areas of strategic importance and front lines. However, you will not be able to spawn on the MSP if it is within the capture zone of an objective. You will need to spawn outside the area and move in on foot. So the battle has now started. Friendly forces are spawning at the FOB and may be using light vehicles to transport them to the objective, or friendlies are using the MSP to get into the action. Now comes the time for organising the resupply of your teammates on the front line. There are three options here. 1. You can use the FOB to directly resupply or switch kits. 2. A squad leader can unload an ammo box from a construction truck. Or 3. You can tow an ammo trailer from the main base to the front line, and it will act similarly to a regular ammo box. You can use transport trucks, construction trucks, MSPs or jeeps to tow these ammo trailers across the environment. In combined arms operations, tanks and other armoured vehicles play a huge part in the battle's dynamic. These heavy vehicles can be found at main base, and to operate them you'll need to be using the crew member kit. If the vehicle is damaged, it can be taken back to base for repair. However, to save you the trip back to main, a squad leader using a construction truck can build a field maintenance station. Though a field maintenance station will not allow repairs back up to 100%, it will at least get the vehicles back into an operable state. These stations can also fully resupply attack vehicles with ammunition. Like most other vital assets in Postscriptum, field maintenance stations will have limited supplies, which, when depleted, will mean the station can no longer repair or resupply vehicles. Supplies can then be regenerated using construction trucks. Now let's have a look from the Germans' perspective. We have the German main base down here, which functions exactly the same as the British one to the north. You have vehicles here such as heavy and medium tanks, armoured recon, artillery pieces, and a variety of transport vehicles and construction trucks. As we can see by the location of the German main base, by the time the Axis forces actually reach the A1 and B1 objectives, the Allies will have already captured them and moved on to the second set. Therefore, the German team will be granted 2 temporary spawns at the first objectives. These temporary spawns are only able to be used once per player, so once he or she is dead and unrevivable, they must spawn either at the second set of objectives or back at main base. But, like the British, the German forces have access to 2 MSPs, though the difference here is that the defending forces can spawn on stationary MSPs within the capture zones. The German faction does not have the ability to construct FOBs, though as long as the A1 and B1 objectives remain uncaptured by the British, they can spawn at A2 and B2. Then, when the first objectives are overrun, German units must spawn at A3 and B3. At the start of a round, although defending forces can choose to spawn at the first 2 objectives, please be aware that there will be no armoured support here, only yourself on the ground and your chosen weapon. Heavy vehicles must traverse the ground between main base and the objectives to give support. This can take a few minutes, so at A2 and B2 there will be light transport trucks waiting, which can be used to ferry troops up to the front line. These trucks respawn every 2 minutes, and there will also be anti-tank guns, or ATGs, at these 2 objectives. These ATGs can be towed by these trucks to any position on the map to give heavy fire support. These ATGs cannot respawn, so they must be used wisely and carefully, as any other ATG required will need to be towed all the way from main base. Defenders will also have construction trucks, but they will only spawn at main base. So at the start of a round, these trucks can be driven up to the first objectives where squad leaders can deploy all the usual emplacements such as mounted MG42s and MG34s, sandbags and other defences. Exactly the same as the British construction trucks, supplies are limited and can be replenished at main. When A1 and B1 have fallen to the attacking force, A2 and B2 now become the defensive front line, and the light trucks will now start respawning at A3 and B3, where the new spawn points are located, along with an ATG or armoured recon vehicle. Any MSPs or other vehicles left up at the first objectives must be safely retrieved and returned to avoid the 5-minute respawn penalty on them. Now the British hold A1 and B1, however A2 and B2 will not be active and cannot be captured for 2 minutes. This allows the defenders the opportunity to reorganise and set up the effective defences required using their construction trucks. If the attackers fail to capture A2 and B2 within 20 minutes, the Germans will have the opportunity to recapture A1 and B1, which, if successful, the British will have to retreat back to these first objectives as A2 and B2 are no longer active or capturable. So, as a defender, to win the game you must hold all locations across the entire map for the duration of the game, or deplete the enemy's reinforcements. And as an attacker, you must capture all objectives or deplete enemy reinforcements. So that about wraps it up for this overview of the offensive game mode. We hope you enjoyed this little insight into what we have planned, and we'll be detailing our other game mode, Stratagem, in the coming weeks. I would just like to say on behalf of the entire team here at Periscope Games that we massively appreciate all the support you guys have given us since we announced the project, and we are excited to be bringing you our interpretation of this grand conflict on such scale.
Join the front line and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for further updates.